Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 632 of the DrunkNerds podcast. I'm host, as always, I'm Tyler. And joining me, we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Sir Colonel Gables. What's up, buddy?
Man, a lot of things this past week, but if I know anything else that I have been doing, I've been playing a hell of a lot of video games. And that's pretty much due in large part to the Marvel Fighting Collection that released last week, and then me simultaneously just going through and doing what I do best in terms of fighting games I like, and that's absolutely play the crap out of them. But other than that, though, still the same old in terms of like work stuff. But most importantly of all, I mean, what I'm doing pretty much for the next week, like just during the weekend and also the next week and stuff, is pretty much watching and like just enduring the last bit of being an Oakland A's fan. Because long story short, tonight was pretty much the last homestand thing with the Oakland A's in Oakland. They're playing in the Coliseum and stuff. We're playing a series here against the Yankees. Obviously, they've lost both games and stuff like that because the Yankees are on another level at this point in time
Yeah.
when they're way to the postseason. But they have a pretty much going to be a pretty much like a tourist attraction inside of Las Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, part of me is really disgusted by that, and also part of me is really disgusted with the owner John Fisher because in my mind he is legitimately the worst like sports team owner pretty much in terms of like Major League Baseball. And that's saying something from being an Oakland A's fan because they've had like terrible like ownership before with Charlie Finley, who really tried to move that team 2 years after relocating them into Oakland. But yeah, man, it's just a lot of things kind of like going on and stuff. A lot of like just mixed feelings about it. Reading things from like A's fans on Twitter and like seeing a whole bunch of like say beat writers like their last tenure with a company like say with Brody Brazil and stuff like a beat cover. He used to work for NBC Sports in the Bay Area and like it's his final time doing stuff. I really enjoy that man's work in terms of coverage of like not just the Oakland A's relocation stuff, but also in terms of like how criminally like negligent say that Oakland A's ownership was in terms of their president Dave Cavill and also in terms of their CEO Jeff Fisher, pretty much the dude that owned a who pretty much inherited all of his money and stuff from his parents and stuff and yeah, pretty much just wanted to just buy the team 20 years ago because of a collusion. It pretty much like a crazy thing in terms of Bud Selig to selling it to one of his friends, Wolf, and that Wolf is affiliated with Fisher, and of course Fisher ends up buying the freaking thing, and then over the past 20 years, not investing any money, any time, or anything inside of that stadium, which is the laughing stock of the entire league because they don't do any maintenance or any type of shit, and that's because of an owner that's just a complete dumbass. But unrelated to all that and stuff, this is a video game podcast. But at the same point, I still cannot go any longer without just saying fuck John Fisher. Absolutely. I hope that man literally just goes and has his freaking testicles severed. I don't give a shit, dude. That's just how I feel as a fan, an Oakland A's fan for over 30 years. My dad literally watched some of the first Oakland A's games back when he was recovering from Nam. That man is pretty much like a fucking public enemy number one for me.
Yeah.
Because that's just one of those things. It's like I don't feel too strongly when it comes to like some aspects of sports, but when it comes to baseball, my family, East Bay sports team and stuff for the Oakland A's, we root for we root for our teams, man. Doesn't matter if it's Giants, whether it's A's, whether it was Niners, or even like Raiders at the time, or freaking like the Warriors or the Sharks. Even though they're going through their own crazy shit, it's just like much like with gaming in terms of like how people are so affiliated with like some of their game franchises and like some of the games like say with Mario, with Zelda, with Metal Gear Solid, with Call of Duty and stuff. That's just kind of like how hard I feel about say the Oakland A's because to me the way I feel about the Oakland A's is like what some people would feel like, say, with like Super Mario Brothers, that franchise as a whole. Like, say, if Miyamoto were to pass sometime soon, which God forbid that does not happen,
Yeah.
because that man is very influential, it would be freaking devastating if, say, like Mario just all of a sudden just went away one day, you know.
Mm.
But enough doom and gloom, dude. I'm just, I'm just want to just go through and enjoy this time as just like just some fun times talking about video games.
Yeah.
With that being said, Tyler, how have you been doing, dude?
I'm doing all right. I don't have anything to add on. Maybe I should have just went first because I mean, my week's been I guess okay. Just Iowa, Iowa Hawkeyes just beat the Minnesota Gophers today.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm drinking my very last that I have in the fridge, my very last Oktoberfest beer. I have to load up on some more Oktoberfest here before the season's gone. But yeah, no, I'm doing okay. Otherwise, clanging and banging as always. Just still hopping around in my walking boot that I've been in the last few months. Hopefully, just a couple more weeks of wearing this thing, and maybe I'll be able to walk normally again. I'm looking forward to that. But I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
Just watch. I've been doing a lot of gaming this week. Just been doing a lot, like watching a lot of TV and a lot of football too. But it's mostly just TV watching and stuff like that. But yeah, nothing too exciting for me. Not a lot going on. I can't really go anywhere. Can't drive. Can't walk really too far. So just been stuck hanging out with my dog in the apartment. So yeah, it's been pretty boring week otherwise. But yeah, without much further ado though, yeah, like Gables mentioned, we are a video game podcast every week. Gables and I get together, talk about video games, everything we love and hate about them, everything in between. If you guys like this, like our show, please like, follow, subscribe, check us out, and everything. We're two guys been doing this for over 11 years. We have full-time regular jobs. We just do this for the fun. We don't ask for your money. We just ask for a little bit of time and maybe a few clicks along the way. A 5-star review, a comment, thumbs up, share with your friends, all that fun stuff. There are links down below if you want to find us. The quick way to get all those places. Whether it's like I said, Twitter, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, all those places. If you're watching us somewhere else, or listening to us somewhere else, and you have the other thing, maybe go over there, subscribe to us on that as well. 5-star reviews helps out. Share with your friends. Those are the things that can really help us out. Like I said, we do this for fun. We don't make money off of this. We actually spend money on this thing. So if you can help us out, it'd be really fantastic. Or if you can, you want to, maybe you want to play video games for 24 straight hours and help those big beautiful kids at Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. You can do that too by signing up for Extra Life. Just go to extra-life.org. Go there. There's also a link to Extra Life in our show notes below if you want to sign up for that and help kids, help raise money, play games for 24 straight hours. Or if some of you might be interested in that, do the same thing. But we'll talk more about that. We're about 6 weeks out from that, so we'll talk more as we get close to it. But I just want to bring that up now. But yeah, Gables, been a pretty crazy week in gaming. Feels like it's been pretty silent. There's been a couple bigger weeks. We had like Gamescom recently, like some big crazy like bigger stories have happened over the last few months. But this feels like a busier week. I think part of it too is the fact that Tokyo Game Show is happening. There's been a lot of rumors and rumblings, stuff like that. So there might be some more content going up on our YouTube channel. Some more reasons to subscribe to us. We'll talk about a little bit later. There's a rumor state of play on Tuesday for PlayStation. I plan on doing a live react to that. That'll be going up on our YouTube channel. I was looking at times because I can't. I'm not working right now because of my broken foot. So I was looking at times for like, is it worth getting up at 3 a.m. to live react to this Xbox thing in Japan? I don't know. There's another one. I think Capcom's got one, but it's like early. It's like 7 a.m. Something like that. My time, not too terrible. So yeah, there might be some more content going up on our YouTube channel. So if you guys want to check us out in those places, I really appreciate if you do that for us. But we'll talk about it more, all the stuff that's coming out of that next week. But before we really get into some of the stuff that come from that, this might be related. Gables apparently, and I know I say this all the time. I've been saying this for a long time. I'm so burnt out on talking about the Switch 2. I really don't want to talk about it too much until we get there. But every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And I'm only giving this one credence because it feels like more people are giving this credence. Like we went to this. We talked about this a lot with the Switch. Like with the first Switch, all those like fake Switches were being released out and we're going nuts. But this one, I guess, just people are giving us credence. Andy Robinson from VGC kind of talked about. So there's some like leaked like kind of like models of like what the Switch 2 was gonna look like. And kind of the innards of it. And basically, I'm not a PC guy. I don't understand the shit at all. But from what I understand is like it's basically slightly more powerful than like a base PS4. DLSS will get it up to close to like an Xbox Series S kind of stuff. It's got like an 8-inch screen. Someone did a 3D model based off of like kind of the actually made a 3D model, 3D
Mm-hmm.
printed a what kind of like based off of like the measurements and everything we got out of this thing, what it looked like, and it basically looks like a slightly like I don't know, a couple inches bigger than a base Switch model, minus the OLED screen. But yeah, so we got some of those details out there. Um, this is all coming out of China, which usually when there's like big like leaks, like actual like we get like screenshots and we see shit like the original like Switch Lite, like we actually saw like I totally forgot about
The
this. Like
back of one of them.
what?
We saw the back of one of them, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, like the Switch Lite, we saw the back of it before, and that was coming out of China. There was there's that Fire Emblem game that like actually has like that had screenshots leaked.
Yep.
The last one that came out a couple years ago, like that leaked like a full year in advance. So usually, and like we see this a lot, like the OLED part of that was leaking because of that. But yeah, Andy Robinson talked about that basically like for the people he's been talking to internally through Nintendo, he's been really on top of like a lot of the leaks and breaking news of Nintendo hardware over the last year or so. And Bloomberg's been really good on top, been really good about it too, like dating back to the original Switch. Um, and basically, what they're reporting is like what they've heard internally from people before this is like what basically what this what's coming out of these like leaked 3D models is basically what they've heard internally going into this. So that's the reason why it's getting more credence. Even Digital Foundry is kind of like is saying like they can see this as being like a a good chance that this is a real leak. Like so, I mean, Gables, um, maybe not so much like do you think it's real or not because like obviously like we don't know. Uh, but I think Kyle Bossman said it best. Nintendo leaks are anywhere between 20 and 80% accurate. So, which is a really good way to put it. But I mean, if this is what it turns out to be, it's just a slightly bigger Switch that runs better. How would you feel about that from Nintendo?
I wouldn't feel that much terrible at all about it, honestly. I would actually be kind of happy that it's a continuation of what they have previously in terms of the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, the specs and the DLSS and all the other stuff, that's been stuff we've been hearing about, rumored about now for the past 5 years in terms of what potentially like a Switch successor would be, either it be the Switch Pro or like whether or not it'd be like the other rumblings that we were hearing with like say DLSS and stuff and upscaling to like 4K and all those other crazy stuff. At the same time, it wouldn't also surprise me. It's because of the fact that even after the whole PS5 Pro unveiling and stuff like last week, it still feels like, from watching that footage and stuff, we are definitely inside of the realm of diminishing returns in terms of game graphics and also in terms of like the extent what consoles and PCs can potentially do to make a game look good. So even if Nintendo doesn't have like say a console that's on par power with like a PS5 or like a whatever, still doing those little things to get the most out of the hardware is what generally Nintendo like does the best
Mm,
in terms of what they have, regardless of what piece of hardware it is. Either if it's like the GameCube or the Wii, or even like say with the initial Switch, it's like they make do with this old hardware, right, or these older type of things like components and all this other stuff, but yet they get so much out of these devices that they literally last for close to 10 years in some cases,
yeah,
even if the tech itself is like 5 or 6 years old.
when it
It's
launched.
when it launched. Yeah, exactly the point. So hearing that these type of specs could be associated with a Switch 2, I'm not at all disappointed about it. I'm not even upset in terms of it not being up to like say what some current system stuff. If this thing, I'm more or less comparing and say on par if it's like this, let's say with the Steam Deck, because it's like that's the closest initial competitor you have, plus the Asus ROG Ally type of stuff. If it's on par and it's doing DLSS stuff and it's like in competition with those other handhelds and stuff, or even like remotely similar, I mean that's perfectly okay by me. I mean, for God's sake, it's like I'm so used to like just playing like handheld games like with Switch and stuff to where even if it's like it's running a little bit better and stuff, it's still going to be an excellent option still to have regardless. And I don't give a shit if it's like completely like say 4K, 120 frames a second, this
Yeah,
and that and stuff.
yeah.
As long as it looks good and it runs good, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I think with Nintendo at this point, like we just want like, yeah, like at this point, if I can just get like consistent 30 frames per second, I'd be pretty
Hmm.
happy with that. Because I mean, it's been, I mean, the frame rate prop like Breath of the Wild launch, it was struggling to do 30 frames per second. Um,
Hmm.
and like they did updates that made it better along the way, but like, I mean, it's been we're talking like going back to like 2019, 2020, these big games coming out and like struggling. Like I played what was that Tales of Calamity. What was the Hyrule Warriors
Hyrule Warriors Age of
Age of
Calamity.
Calamity? I played that whole game at like 15 frames per second. Um, and like so like that's been like my big frustration with it is just like over just running. Like I don't like I'm not a huge tech guy. I don't know. I enjoy those like absolutely super gorgeous like I talked about like last year playing Final Fantasy 16 like crying because of the visuals and the music like just like everything that came together like everything I was seeing was like it was so gorgeous. I started like just from the hype of everything just started crying because how beautiful the thing I was looking at on the screen. So like I love that, but yeah, like definitely like it's like Nintendo's like the strength their strength is just gameplay and everything like that. So as long as like yeah like um they like as long as the games keep coming and like they talked about even though like they're like they even mentioned themselves I think it was earlier this year or later in the last year that they're kind of running the same issue that like everybody else is running into. The games are taking longer and they're costing more and more money to make. So it's gonna be a bit of a problem here. But like I think the key issue is like um, as long as they can keep a steady stream of games coming on this thing, as long as you don't have like like you look at a lot of those consoles that like pre-switch where like they didn't like we would go like a whole year without anything to play or we get like one or two games a year and we had those a little bit on the
Hmm.
Switch but like they've always had like a good enough of like they had like all the Wii U ports and remasters and stuff like that to kind of like backfill in like those kind of like lulls that we had in the release schedule. We're seeing that this year
Right.
with the Switch where like it's a lot of remasters and ports and like we're like the last couple months of the year we're getting like Zelda next week and there's like Brothership at the end of in November. So like there's a couple solid games coming out like but they're like they don't have like that maybe that A tier S tier game coming this year but like they still have some pretty solid games coming this year. But it's like as long as like that's the key is like steady streams of game like quality games people want to play. Um, I've talked about we've been through this a million times. I'm not gonna go on the whole like the strength of like Nintendo is like having the great games but also become coming in at like a competitive price point. And I
Yeah.
still think $400 is like where it's probably going to come at the minimum. But like I know some people are saying it might be 500. I think that might be pushing it just because, like Nintendo was looked at more along lines of like more of a family platform. And like it's easier to swallow like a few $100s. I mean, obviously, tech is getting more expensive. Prices of everything is going up and
Hmm.
up and up and up. Everything we all know about across the world. But yeah, I'm curious.
Well,
Like to me, like the key is just like price point and everything like that. But
yes.
there's like a little bit of like a little like even though like this is exactly I think what everybody wanted and like everybody's like for once like
Yeah.
just play fucking safe, don't do something stupid. But there's like a little part of you that's like I kind of want to see what they would do, like what's the crazy thing they're gonna do, like I feel like they're still gonna do something stupid, like or maybe not stupid, but kind of like what are we doing here? What is this? Like it's kind of like the HT Rumble thing, like look at the ice cubes, or like 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 I still think like, there's like the magnet thing, but I don't know if that's gonna be a game mechanic, but there's a part of me that's like what all right, what are you up to? I want to know what we're doing here, but yeah,
There's always that thing in the back of your mind or something like that because it's Nintendo. It's like they got something up their sleeve.
yeah,
They always have some sort of gimmick with their consoles. It doesn't matter whether or not if it's like, say, with with the Wii or something with motion control, or even with the Wii U with the damn gamepad, or
yeah,
even with the DS with the dual screens, or the
3DS,
3D
yeah.
3DS or something, or
Yeah, or even
and
they
that
even
stuff.
with the Switch, they try to like make motion controls a big part of it again. And it's like they kind of like
Yeah,
took a backseat as the generation went on. Like it's still a
they had to
thing,
take it back.
but it's not like the thing anymore. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I'm this is honestly like yeah, I'm okay with this. This is what I want as long as it comes at a competitive price point and there are solid games to play throughout. Like I always talk about like um like not just having a great launch lineup is like what's the
Hmm.
launch window and like to me that was the biggest success of the Switch was just that like that first like 8 months of the Switch was like like that from Breath of the Wild to Mario Odyssey from March to November. Like what's that? What's the
Yeah.
big things you have coming for us? Especially if it's gonna come out in the springtime next year. Like what's the, show us like, hey, you got a couple games coming, and then what's that big holiday game you got for us? That's gonna it's gonna get everybody back for the holiday. So I don't know. I mean, there's rumblings that they might do something next week. Um, and some people are talking maybe they want to do it because there's a little bit of like concern over the the PS5 Pro in the sense of like people are there's gonna be a lot that thing's gonna sell out. A lot of people are gonna buy it. Like I know like there's a lot of negativity around it, but that thing's gonna sell out. It's gonna sell like crazy. But I don't think it's gonna be a multi. I don't know if it's gonna be like multi-million units sold in the first year. I don't even think they're gonna make that many. But
I
like
think it's just going to be sort of similar to like say with the with the PS4 to PS4 Pro, where it's like maybe like a couple, like a quarter or something like that of
it's like
people will buy
14%
like,
that bought it. Yeah.
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 I think it's going to be around the same thing for the PS5 Pro,
Yeah.
but in terms of like the Switch successor and stuff, as long as they have it competitively priced with say like the Steam Deck and like the ROG Ally and stuff like that, and make that as sort of like a baseline thing. I don't care if it's like say if like a $400 or $450 like a $450 like device or something like that. That in of itself would be worth it if it had all the initial things that we have been hearing about, and they have these killer app games right from the get go.
Yeah, yeah. I just think the key thing is like there's people like us who are gonna buy it day one. Like it's gonna be pretty hard. Yeah, like they're gonna Xbox One this thing to like for us not to. But yeah, like I think the key point is just like I said, the family thing. Where you look at like I think there is a price point eventually where it's gonna like families are gonna like be turned off by it. But I don't think I think like the vibes are so positive for the Switch right now. And like I was talking to a couple friends that like they're not like they play games, but they're not like big into gaming news. A lot of honestly, like a lot of the news they get is because of me. And they were like, "Is this like? It feels like they're gonna Wii U this one." I'm like, I was like kind of talking about it, and I kind of like thought of it as I was talking about it. I'm like, there's a good chance the Switch is gonna sell more units in the eighth year of its life cycle than the Wii U sold. Period.
Yeah,
Like that's like
yeah,
there's a
that's the
difference. Like
reality.
yeah, that's the difference going from the Wii to Wii U is the fact that like by 2009, the kind of the fad of the Wii U was over,
Yeah.
and Nintendo just didn't realize it or wasn't able to pivot in time to go to the Wii U, and didn't understand. Obviously, they missed their market and everything like that. We don't have to go through it again, but um, yeah. So I don't think that's gonna be the case. I feel like they're gonna have a pretty strong 3D third party support at launch. But yeah. Um, moving on here to the next thing. Stick with Nintendo here for 1,000. Um, finally happened. I think the thing we are all waiting for. Nintendo announced that they are suing Palworld, not for copyright issues, but for a patent lawsuit. Um, and we don't know if we're 100% sure. Even Pocket Pair even said they don't 100% know what it is. At least at the time they we found out about it. Um, but some of the journalists, I think I can't remember if it was Tom Warren maybe that initially that pulled this up or not. Some people found a patent that Nintendo has for basically they have the patent for catching monsters in a field with a ball. And they got this patent in Japan back in 2021, and they actually filed for the patent in the United States in May of this year. So after Palworld came up, but this is a patent that is this is the suing and everything. This all is happening in Japan. So this is not a U.S. thing, but it's pretty interesting how late like Pokemon been around for over 20 years before they actually got the patent for this thing. But um, I don't know, Gables. What's your what's your thoughts and how were you initially when you heard about this?
Well, honestly, the initial reaction was I wasn't surprised that they would go through and try to sue Pal World. I mean, there are aspects and certain similarities that are akin to, say, the Pokemon series and the way you capture monsters and stuff. And then there's certain mechanics I can understand why they would initially go through and take them to court. At the same time, we're just kind of like speculating in terms of what patents in general. Obviously, Tom Warren found that one patent in terms of catching monsters inside of a open world with a ball and stuff, kind of similar to like how like the Pokemon games and stuff, like Pokemon Legends Arceus and stuff, how you went onto the field and you could just capture certain Pokemon with a ball and this and that, and how in Pal World is sort of somewhat similar, only there's like obviously some core mechanic stuff to where you're doing like say like doing building aspects or something, and you're just using guns in order to try to battle certain
Yeah,
monster like certain power monsters and stuff. But it's going to be fascinating to see this kind of develop, whether or not like if these patents that Nintendo has can actually hold merit, especially since that initial patent that we did see wasn't signed until May of this year, and that was like way after the release of
Yeah, but
Palworld,
that's the
which
United
was
States,
earlier on
though.
this year.
Yeah, that doesn't have any effect because this is taking place in Japan. So
Right,
yeah,
right. But even with that speculatory stuff, it's like you're kind of wondering what other types of patents Nintendo may have that could have potentially been like infringed upon. So it's kind of fascinating to see where this is going to lead, and also if they're just going to settle out of court, and who knows how much they could settle this for.
yeah,
This is one of those rare instances and stuff to where Nintendo actually has some bit of competition in terms of like Pokemon stuff, and unfortunately for them, it's like them dropping the ball with Scarlet and Violet is ultimately what led to this happening, because people have been trying to seek on to an alternative for the Pokemon stuff for quite a long while because of the missteps and like other changes that certain longtime players have not enjoyed.
hmm.
And so with Power World taking off and stuff, of course, if Power World weren't as popular as it is, they would not have given a shit about this.
Yeah,
I feel 100% obvious that that's the case, but because of how much people have a demand of like paying for a decent like Pokemon alternative game, like a monster taming sort of game, in that case, they that makers and stuff did really benefit from that early success of this year
yeah,
with Power World.
yeah. I just think this is incredibly fucking lame. Honestly, like I get they have a patent, but the problem is like the idea of like patenting game mechanics is like so stupid. Like imagine if like id when they put out Wolfenstein and Doom, like cool, we're patenting guns in games. Like,
Nah,
that's fucking lame. And like the fact is like a lot of game like there's a lot of things that are patented out there in the world that like other people use, but like don't no one cares. Like they let it go and like um like or like they like if it gets big enough they might care and like hey you owe us a little bit of money or whatever. But like um more times not like so like all right, so the case point here Nintendo has a patent for I don't know if you saw this one, so someone looked it up. There's a Nintendo has a patent, like in Mario 3D World when like you go on the other side of a tree you see the shadow of Mario.
yeah.
Nintendo has a patent for that.
What?
Yeah. So it's like remember Namco, like they had the patent for over 20 years for putting like Galaga in the loading screen of like Tekken and shit.
Uh huh.
Like they had the patent for that forever, and then like, I think they
Oh
finally just
wow.
got rid of it like in 2015. um So like our like Nemesis system, WB has the patent for that, and they haven't used it in like 8 years. I know Wonder Woman game is gonna use it, but like it's just like man, like you made this really cool thing, and like now no one just gonna use it. And like I said, like just because you have the patent doesn't necessarily mean that other people are gonna use it. Like Nintendo, like there was I think it was 404. I can't remember the name of the website, but I read the article about it. Like 404 I can't anyway. Sorry, I can't remember, but they had a really good article breaking down a lot of things. Like Nintendo has never lost a case in Japan when they're the ones that are the ones suing, so they're undefeated in that. Um, and in 2016 or 17, there was a mobile game that came out in Japan. It was one of the most popular mobile games in Japan, and they had a thing when you like would close the app, it would like basically put the thing to sleep, and when you open it back up, it would have a like, do you want to like a confirm screen asking if you
Uh
want to
huh.
go back to you put yes or no, whatever, to go back to it. Nintendo has a patent for that.
It's a spend screen,
Yes,
pretty much.
yes, and Nintendo sued them
Wow.
and for $20 million, and now they also get a cut of everything, every purchase that is made in that game. So, and Nintendo's fucking ruthless about we've been talking about all year like they're going after all the even like all these like ROM sites that like have like there's legal precedents that like these ROM
Mm-hmm.
sites do have like they've won legal battles like the laws on their side, but they're like they're just Joe schmoes like you and me that just put up like and they put a cease and desist out there and it's like well we can't go we don't like the Nintendo knows they can't afford to go after them or can't afford to fight it even though they can win. That Nintendo knows like yeah they're probably gonna win if they wanted to, but they can't afford to go against us because like it's like see a million times you see big corporations they have even though they're in the wrong, but they have the power and the money, and they know that all they gotta do is wait you out or they know that you can't do anything about it, and you're just gonna either gonna give up or you're gonna settle, and that's probably what's gonna happen here. They're probably gonna like settle. I think like uh I think people figured about the revenue for Power World was about $70 million, so they're gonna get a chunk of that, and then they're probably gonna get a percentage of whatever they get. And I don't know. I think this sucks. And like I get it. Like hey, on one hand, Palworld they poked the bear. Like Nintendo is a
Yeah.
fucking bear. They poked the bear, and they knew what they're doing. So there's a little part of me that's like, well, you kind of knew what you're doing here. But another part of me is like, it's like, man, this is kind of like Nintendo was gonna find out like, all right, this is not copyright, so this isn't about the fact that the monsters in Power Worlds look similar or a lot alike to the Pokemon.
Yep.
But this is, but they're like they pissed them off, and like maybe if they didn't do this, if they look entirely different, maybe they would have let it go. I don't know. Although the Pokemon Nintendo's like, well, they're making a lot of money over there. Even like it's like we want some of that, and like I don't know, like Pokemon's not the first. Nintendo's not the first person to make monster capturing games. There were several
No.
before it. Fuck, there's the Monster Hunters Stories, which is like a monster catching game. Nintendo put their licensed characters in that fucking game, like on 3DS, not too long ago.
Yep.
So, there are other very popular but like I don't know. I would say if you're a game that's like this, like whether it's like your Temtem or Cassette Beast or anything like that, like I'd be very concerned. And like, there's also like the very funny thing about everybody's like pissed off at Power World for a lot of people are pissed off at Power World for like, hey, you guys monsters look just like Pokemon. When there's like someone posted like a really good the original Dragon Quest game that came out 10 years before the first Pokemon game showed the art designs of the original monsters in Dragon Quest
Mm-hmm.
compared to the Gen 1 Pokemon, almost identically similar. So it's crazy like how like hey like everybody's like doing this like man fucking Nintendo did it 30 years ago. Um, so I don't know. Like on one hand I get it. Like yeah, they fucked around. They found out. They're finding out I guess. But I don't know. It's just like sucks. It's just kind of lame. And it's just like it's gonna make like
Right.
like imagine if like GTA copyrighted sandbox games, or if like Ubisoft patented fucking you can't put towers in your games anymore. Like not no one can do it. Like I don't know. I don't know. It just kind of sucks. It's like I get they have the legal there's a legal right to it and all that, but just because you have a legal right, I don't think like I don't know. It doesn't make it right. I guess in my look way, but whatever. They're gonna get money out of this. Hopefully, it's like I don't want like I don't know. I played like 8 hours of Power World. I thought it was fine. It's not a game for me. I thought it was entertaining enough and kind of fun for a little bit, and I kind of at a certain point ran out of things to do. But I don't know.
I would say though, Tyler, you did bring up a good point for other like monster catching sort of games, that like with Temtem and then cassette beasts in general, I would be kind of concerned if I was like an indie developer and I'm creating a sort of like spin on like a monster catching game, because if Nintendo could go after the developers here for Pal World and stuff, who's to say they could go after like some of those initial certain like monster catching things, like those other type of like smaller indie games or this or that, I mean, at the same point, a lot of those games are also on the Switch as well. So my guess is like Nintendo isn't like too concerned about these games in general, but at the same time, it's just a little core aspect of like, hey, if you're using anything really closely similar to their product, they're usually very adamant upon like protecting their IP at all costs. And so they'll do whatever it takes in order to make sure they either get a cut of it or you're completely gone.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, like it sucks. Like Nintendo's like literally like suing multiple people for millions of dollars, like Joe Schmoes like you and me, and they're literally
Yep.
giving them like $25 a week, like on multi-million-dollar settlements. Like this is like how like Nintendo like are gonna make examples of. Doesn't matter if you're a major like a gigantic studio or is bringing in millions of dollars a year, or some 23-year-old kid making 50 grand a year. They don't care. They're gonna make examples of people there. I mean this is a place that like they will like shut down mom and pop shops running Smash Brothers tournaments. Like they
Yep.
are fucking crazy and nuts. Instead of America is borderline just a fucking mafia. Like there's a law office that their job is to go around and shut down things that they don't like. So I don't know, like it's like what I always say, like like it's nothing wrong being a fan of things, but at a certain point, like this is like you gotta understand these companies don't give a shit about you. So I don't know. I see like people fanboying and defending and like getting mad about it. It's just like these are fucking video games. This is like a multi-billion-dollar company. It's one of the richest
Right.
companies in all of Japan. It's like I don't know. I'm not gonna stand for them.
It has some of the most popular IPs in the entire world.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah. Like they're like I mentioned at the time, like I think Power World's like I think this is like Power World's a good thing because honestly, like I said at the time, like when I played Power World, like I don't think this is gonna hurt Pokemon. Like I'm not saying this is like was a, the end. This is doom and gloom for the Pokemon or Nintendo, but I'm like maybe there's like a little bit of like a light of fire under your ass of like, hey, like someone's like out here like doing something that you do, and on some levels doing it better, and on some ways like like it's a little competitions out there is good. Competition is good for everybody. It's good for consumers. It is good for the talent. Like because I don't know, you get a little stale. It's like we're wrestling fans. WWE was garbage for 20 years, and then AEW comes around, and now WWE is the most popular it's been in over 20 years. Since
Yep.
WCW died. It's like talent. Like competition is good. It fuels people to get better and better. So, um, I don't know, but let's move on here, Gables. This is like, this is kind of like I think a little PlayStation corner of news here because I feel like a lot of this is going to be like this is going up on Sunday morning, so a lot of this is going to be kind of like older news rather quickly. So we don't spend too much time on this. Like I mentioned at the top, there's a Jeff Grubb did mention there's going to be a PlayStation State of Play probably on the 24th on Tuesday. So keep an eye out for that one. We don't. He didn't say 100% sure that these will be there, but he did. So one thing that like this has been rumored for a long time, but there was ESRB came out. There is a rating for Horizon Zero Dawn remastered, and then Jeff Grubb did mention that Days Gone is also being remastered. So before we like get into everything else, Gables, like any like overall like any major hype for the state of play, and then kind of the thoughts on the remaster stuff.
All right. So in terms of state of play, do I have any type of initial hype for it? Honestly, I don't really have a lot of hype going into it, only because it's like there are plenty of uncertainties, sure, but at the same time, it kind of sank down a little bit, just like hearing rumors of like that ESRB rating and stuff for a Horizon Zero Dawn like remake, and then Grubb did allude to like another one that's even like more sort of like kind of like questionable, not like, just like questionable per se, but like
Less
even
exciting.
more so kind of boring, less exciting and stuff with like Days Gone, remake and stuff like that, and like remaster or something like that. And you know what? It's for those initial things, I'm not too excited for those either, and it's because of how it's just it just feels way too soon to actually remaster a lot of those games to me. And it's just the time period of when they initially released, which, what for Horizon Zero Dawn, that was like 2017.
Yeah,
And then for like Days Gone, I think it wasn't even that long after either.
2019.
Yeah, 2019, so like about 2 years after that, this is like another this is pretty much like another attempt like by Sony just to take a couple established like games that they already have had re-released and stuff like that and just re-release them like not even with like a sometimes not even with like a few years of each other, like say with the Last of Us Part 2 remaster and stuff, and then you have
That's
the
4 years
original
later.
Last of Us. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I'm just saying it's like they are it just kind of makes me feel kind of less kind of excited in terms of what they potentially are coming out with in that course if they have to go down the well and just tap into re-releasing like remastering games that are not even like say over like 10 years or older. So with that case in point, it's I am curious about what they would potentially show at another state of play, but it's like just for this news, I'm not really too excited.
Yeah. I mean, the remaster stuff doesn't really bother me because plus the remasters like it's a $10 upgrade if you already own them, so it's like whatever. Like that's fine with me. Like and plus like the Last of Us Part Two, when they did the remaster earlier this year, it came with the whole last new game mode when they did the roguelike mode and everything like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I don't know. Like I'm like Horizon Zero Dawn was my game of the year 2017. I did replay it. Um, oh God, was that 2022? Yeah, right before Forbidden West came out. And I did the new game plus. I replayed it back then. I loved it. I still love that game, but like, yeah, I'm not like obviously like it. Like I'm not expecting. I don't know if it's gonna be this year. I'm not because like there's still that Lego Rising game that's supposed to come out in November. So I imagine maybe this is like something early next year. Um, but these don't really bother me because I don't know. I imagine like these are just for like filling in gaps. And it's like I've talked about it before. Like you know how many fucking Switch games or Wii U games I bought at full price and then bought 3 years later at full price on the Switch. Like Mario Kart 8 came out
Yeah.
less than 3 years, like 3 years apart. Came out between we bought Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U, and then three
Yeah.
years later we bought a remaster for $60 for on the Switch. Like the Switch is like I just talked about earlier. Like the Switch, like did like a big part of like the success of the Switch was like constantly having those ports and remasters to fill in the gaps of like in between the big new games that are coming to the console. So and like, they're charging full price for those, and it's like this is like you already own it. It's $10 if you like you don't. I think it's like 40 or $50. Like I get it. Like I understand like the frustration if you're a fan of these and you have these consoles. Like I'm fine with like I said these don't bother me. Like I said, it's $10 more for an upgrade if you already own them and whatever. Or if even if like you've never played them before, you can probably find like you can buy them for probably $10-$20 right now on like a PS4 edition, and then just pay the upgrade and get it for cheaper than what it costs to buy it. You know,
Sure.
so like that doesn't really bother me too much, but like I get the frustration in the sense of like there is definitely like we're in a state of like we've been in for a while now of like not really knowing what's next, and like I think this year for PS5 has been okay for as far as exclusives go. Like we had a Helldivers 2, we've had Stellar Blade. What else? We just had fucking Astrobot 2 weeks ago. Astrobot was 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago, and like I feel like we're already like obviously with Concord that's a whole nother discussion. But like like I feel like overall this year has been pretty decent. Like there's a couple other exclusives that I'm totally forgetting about that came out this year as well. But I don't know. I feel like it's been yeah, it's definitely been like maybe the least exciting year for the PS5. But like there's been stuff there. But yeah, I get like this is like the first time in a long time, and I've been talking about this for a while now since like after Spider-Man 2 kind of like we don't really know what the next big tentpole games is. Like we have Wolverine, we know is coming probably next year, but like we haven't seen that in 2 years. Um, we don't know what like Santa Monica like obviously like problem is like a lot of their big major studios are kind of reloading right now. Like Naughty Dog, they just canceled The Last of Us multiplayer and stuff like that. Like I think that's been like I guess we had Death Stranding too. That's another one I'm forgetting about. But yeah, like I think that's the frustration with people is like we just keep seeing all these remasters of these games, but we're not seeing like at least like we're talking about like this has been kind of a lackluster year for Nintendo. Like, but it's been a solid but lackluster year. But like like with them, like we don't know the next big games coming from them, but we know we're getting new hardware for them. So that's the excitement.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Xbox, like they got a pretty good fall coming up here, and a pretty good first half of next year coming up. Like we like they have a pretty nice layout of games coming out for the next like 6 to 9 months or so. So it's like and like PlayStation is like we just don't know, and like it's been like we just all the games and service stuff like just the vibes have not been great, and it's I think people are just like you had like a really great run of like a long time there of just dominating video games. Um, really since like 2013, since the PS4 launch, and this is the first time we've had a lull from them in quite a while. And yeah, I think that's like most frustration. It's just like I think if we had these and we like, hey, here's the next big Naughty Dog game. Here's the Cory Barlog game. Here's like what's fucking who made Days Gone? Bend. What's Bend making? Ghost of Tsushima 2. If we had those and like not just like we know they're coming, but like if we like have seen something from them and like we would like they're coming sooner. Like I feel like I like all right, cool. Like these are coming in between those things, but like I think it's just like the frustration of like we don't know like what's like what do you got? Like we bought these things, like we don't know what the fuck's coming from you. The only thing we know was like coming from you guys is like what's the fucking fair games the games service game marathon. We have that we have that coming, and like I think that's like I said, it's like man, they just like I hope like that the state of play like I feel like I've said this multiple times now. I was like, hey, like even if it's just a trailer or a teaser, like I feel like you have to throw a couple in here in this state of play, like that would probably I think that would like kind of like get people a little more positive about their PS5, about PlayStation overall, and I think they can use it, and especially with the Switch coming out next year, um, like and part of what I was talking about earlier about like maybe Nintendo won't announce the Switch 2 before the PS5 Pro goes up for pre-orders because there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna buy it, and a lot of people are gonna spend 700, 800, $900 on all this stuff, and like people are gonna pay for all this, and then like the Switch 2's gonna come out. Most people are not gonna have the money to buy both. So that's part of the
That's
reason why
true.
like maybe Switch 2 doesn't go for like say they announce it sometime this week. If they announce it and people are like, well, I'm gonna instead of spending all this money on a PS5 Pro, I need to hold my money because in April or something Switch 2's gonna come out. Like so that's kind of what I was meant to go back to earlier on the last topic, but yeah, I don't know like yeah, the vibes are not great for PlayStation. Probably the worst they've been in quite a while. And but it is funny though. Like everybody was like losing their fucking mind last week about the PS5 Pro, and then they announced the PS5 Pro 30th anniversary edition, and the vibes like there's that meme right now going like of a PlayStation this month of like it's so over, we're so back, it's so over, we're so back. And it's like it's just been this roller coaster ride, and like everybody last week was like a lot of people were upset about the price point, and then it's like a lot of the same people were like, well, like why didn't you guys lead with this? Like this 30th anniversary, it is gorgeous. I wish they would have like they're doing like it's like it looks like a PlayStation, it's like PlayStation One gray. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they got the DualSense. They're doing the DualSense Edge. They're doing like they even have like a fucking charger that looks like the old like the plug-in actually for the controller cable. They're doing a couple of the what's the handheld the portable PlayStation Portable.
Portal.
Portal. Thank you. Um, yeah, they're doing that as well. I don't know. They haven't set a price point for any of these things yet, but I kind of wish they would have told me this like a few weeks ago before I bought the Astrobot fucking controller, because I would have totally said I probably would actually like I have not bought like any like the crazy expensive like Xbox controller or the DualSense Edge, but man, I think I would have actually just spent the money finally on it. Finally, I would upgrade it to a DualSense Edge if I would have known about this fucking 30th anniversary one. But Gables, when you saw that thing, is it doing anything for you?
I like the look of all the different like consoles and the controllers and stuff, but whether or not I want to invest inside of it, no. I'm still remain kind of firm in terms of the whole PS5 Pro stuff. I mean, it didn't really entice me when I saw it unveiled, and quite honestly, it didn't really excite me too much. That see the design stuff of the whole PlayStation colors, the 30th anniversary stuff. I mean, here's the thing: I did like the color scheme and stuff of the controllers and stuff, the DualSense Edge and stuff as well. But at the same time, it didn't really coax me to want to actually get a PS5 Pro.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
they are doing the base
yeah,
model PS5 as well for this, so that is also an
yeah.
option. But I think they said for the PS5 Pro version, they're only doing 12,300, which is because the original PlayStation One came out December 3rd in Japan. So yeah, but yeah, I like the yeah, I'm like I definitely like even if I had the money, I don't think I couldn't justify spending the money on a PS5 Pro. But like yeah, like I said, if I would have just bought the Astrobot controller, I at least would have bought like the DualSense the I would at least try to get that DualSense. But maybe would have finally jumped up and got the DualSense Edge. But yeah, let's move on. That's actually kind of it for the like normal stuff this week. But we got some other news, some of the smaller stuff going on in the week of gaming. But Skate is coming to early access next year. That's pretty exciting. Some more a little bit of EA news here. Also, they did announce the next Battlefield game will take place modern day. They have multiple studios working on it, and they have one studio that is literally just making the campaign. So obviously, Battlefield 21, 42 didn't have a campaign, and I talked about like 3 years ago when that came out. I was like, man, like trying to put out a multiplayer only game at full price $70. That's stupid. And we see years later. I guess Helldivers 2 is like the one exception to that, but for the most part, it doesn't work out very well. Even if you're free to play, it doesn't work out most times. But yeah, so they're I think the sellers are trying to go more back to the basics. But yeah, that's going on. EA did also announce that they're not making they're not like either canceling or they're just not going to make a Sims 5. And they're going to stick with 4. Gables, we talk about this all the time. There's like all these like major games out there that we don't know
Hmm.
about, or like we just don't like, or like we know of the game but we don't think about it. But there's like, actually quietly like a huge fan base to it. Matt Piscatella was talking about after they announced that they're not making a Sims 5. 10% of United States gamers that own a PlayStation or Xbox in the month of August, 10% of them played Sims 4.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that's just on console. It's even more popular like on PC. So
Jeez.
yeah, so
That's pretty big powerful.
yeah, so it's just like it's one of those like games of service thing that like people just play. So yeah, it's like we talk about this every now and again. We see games like they try to like it's a very like what's like the thin line or thin like I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but basically like I can't think of the term I'm trying to say here, but basically like it's tough to like go from like we have a very popular like games of service that people are still playing, and then try to go to the next one, without like losing those people and keep it's a balancing act there that yeah, so it's probably just smarter like hey, we're just gonna people are still playing the same. They seem pretty happy with it. Let's just keep supporting it. And okay, good for the EA on that one. Like I mentioned, Xbox is doing a event, a Tokyo Game Show on Thursday, September 26th. It is at 5 a.m. Central Time. That's 3 a.m. Pacific Time. And Capcom is also doing one on Thursday at 9 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Pacific Time. So yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing live reactions. Maybe the Capcom one I will. I don't know. I'm gonna double check to see what's in it because if it's just like some of those Capcom ones are pretty fucking awful, so I might like double check to see like 100% what's in it. Then maybe I'll just like watch it or something later or just read the news about it. But 'cause I think it's like 50 minutes too. It's not even like gonna be short.
Right.
So um, watch, I don't watch it, and then they like Resident Evil 9 gets announced in it or something. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. Gables, let's jump into what we've been playing. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first, buddy?
Well, let's have you go first.
Okay. So I've really only been playing. I played a couple other games this week, but there's only one really I want to talk about. And I did finish up. I finished up today actually. The casting of Frank Stone came out a few weeks ago. This is the newest game from Supermassive Games. People that made like Until Dawn and um, the Dark Pictures anthology games. Very, very much based on like split second decisions, stuff like that. Like cast characters, you jump between them every chapter, and it's a horror game. People that don't know, but Until Dawn, the remake's coming out in a couple weeks actually, so I'm pretty excited about that one as well. But anyways, this is like their like kind of a new IP for them. It is based off of the, I guess not based off of, but it takes place like it's related to like Dead by Daylight. Um,
Yep.
so and I feel like I've been pretty happy with. I've enjoyed every single Supermassive game, so I'm a little bit of I guess a fanboy in that sense of like I still like even like their worst ones I still liked except for like that weird PlayLink one they did for PlayStation 4 back in the day when they were like really
Right.
trying to get people to play like mobile game like use your mobile phone on like on the console. Anyways, that's the one I didn't finish, but I played all the Dark Pictures anthologies. The Quarry I beat, Until Dawn I beat, and I think there's been 4 Dark Picture anthologies. I think Quarry's number 2 for me, Until Dawn's number 1, and like the other Dark Pictures anthology games are all between 3 and 6, or 3 and 6, third and sixth place for me. And this one I put closer to the bottom than the top. For this one, I'd probably put it like I have to like go through the list again, but it'd probably be like 5th out of like 7th. 5 out of 7 on this one, on my list for this one. Um, I was actually like, so this one is like it jumps between like 1980 and 2024. Like you are basically like there's like these teenagers in like 1980. They're filming a movie at this steel mill that like this like crazy like cult guy like Frank Stone was like murdering children and stuff at, and he was killed in 1963. But there's like obviously like some weird like horror stuff happening here. When he's coming back, but these kids are trying to film like a horror movie in the steel mill, 1980, so 17 years later, and obviously shit goes down. But also jumps between like 2024 and like one of the characters and like that was helping film the movie is there, and then like then a couple of their characters like they go with like this creepy mansion like London, I believe, and basically they um, this woman wants like the footage of that movie. Like it was like this like something crazy would happen. I don't want to. It's hard to talk about this stuff without spoiling it necessarily. I think that it's fairly short. I'm pretty slow with these games. Like I like try to find everything. I like especially because like sometimes you find something in chapter 2 and might come back to help. Like say you find like a pipe or something in chapter 2 and might come back to save you from something in chapter 7 or whatever. Stuff like that. Um, so I'm pretty slow when it comes to these things. Like I imagine I probably go through this. You probably beat it like around 5 hours, but it probably took me closer to like 6 or 7. Um, but I thought it's a little slow in the beginning. Like it's because I think it's setting up so much because like you like you do the prologue and then like you start with 1980, then you go to 2024. It introduces a lot of characters and it takes a good chunk of time to get going. Once it got going though, I'm like, man, I'm fucking loving this. This is great. I'm really liking this. And then the last like hour, because like I feel like the game stands up really well on its own as a supermassive game, and I'm really liking this. Like I mean, to me, I'm playing through this and I'm like this. I'm like, oh man, this might be 3rd or 4th for me. Like I'm really liking where this is going. And then the last like hour, I was like totally fucking confused. Like I just point out, I've never played Dead by Daylight. I've seen trailers. I've seen people play the game. I know the ins and outs of it. I've seen it, and there are moments in the game that are like they basically like take parts of Dead by Daylight. Like there are multiple times in the game where you got to like start a generator without like people find it without like alerting the monster or whatever, or like a lot of people are getting stuck on hooks and stuff. And you gotta go save them throughout the game. Like that is a common theme and stuff like that. There was definitely like things I saw there like little like uh, nuggets of like, oh hey, if you like you play Dead by Daylight, you'll get this reference, or like I guess songs stuff. I was kind of reading like what is like I was trying to like figure out like what is like the references here and like how much of a Dead by Daylight game this actually is after I beat it. And then I played that last hour and I was totally fucking lost. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like nothing all of a sudden everything is like I'm so like what does the story mean? What is going on here? And I did not like that last hour and I did not like the way it ended. And I went and I kind of looked up a little bit. I only beat it like a few hours before we sat down to do this, so I haven't got to spend too much time on it. But I did do a little bit of like trying to figure out like, okay, what did I do something that like caused this? And like there were definitely like things like crazy things that could have happened if I would have done something else. Like it's pretty crazy, like just how much shit actually could have like things could have went like if I did one or two things differently. But like I guess like the last like hour is for like you have like are for like the fans of Dead by Daylight. Like if you know the characters, if you know the world, the lore of Dead by Daylight, like this shit, it's for you. But like it's just like like I said, the first like 5 hours or so I played this game, I was like, this is great. I'm having a really great time with this. And that last hour, I'm like, I audibly yelled, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like I was like getting frustrated by this game just because of this. And I was like, and I kind of looked up, I'm like, okay, I get that. I'm like, on one hand, I get it. Like, hey, this is like, yeah, like a little bit on me, Tyler, for hey, you don't know about Dead by Daylight, so why'd you think you're gonna get this? But also on the other hand, I'm I don't know, like the first 5 hours the way it went was like it seemed like a like I thought it'd be like, hey, this stands up on its own, but it's also like, hey, there's a lot of shit here. If you're a hardcore fan of this thing, like almost like Astrobot, like, hey, this is a great game on its own, but if you're a fan of PlayStation like history, this is like it's just one extra thing on top of it. And I feel like the first like 5 hours was like, hey, this is like a really good Supermassive game. You'll like this if you like Supermassive games. And then the last hour is like, if you don't know anything about Dead by Daylight or like very little about it, you're gonna be fucking lost. And that was me. So I'm not getting a lot for that. Um, I still think it's a good like if you are a Supermassive fan, you'll still like this thing. I need to wait for a sale. I think it's like $40. Maybe wait. Maybe it'll be on sale when it gets closer to Halloween for like looking for like a scary game to play. Um, or if like you've never played Until Dawn, like you got into like Supermassive recently, or you are like, hey, like these look interesting. I'll jump in. Play Until Dawn, the Until Dawn remake when it comes out in a couple weeks. I think it's like $10. I think it's like $50 for that. Just buy that one instead. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I enjoyed it, but I was a little like from where I was, like I said, that first like 5 hours, I'm like this is fantastic. To like that last hour, I'm like, oh man, all right, okay. I kind of came away like pretty negative. I was pretty negative about the ending, but I still overall was an okay time. Like I'd probably put like a 6.5 out of 10 for me. But yeah, that's why I've been playing Gables. What about you, buddy?
All right, so the vast majority of my this week has been comprised of me playing one game, and that's the Marvel Fighting Collection. Consists of like six various fighting games, ranging from X-Men: Children of the Atom all the way up to MVC2. So obviously, last week I had delved into like the Marvel Fighting Collection and stuff. I even went as far as to try a couple of games online. Let's see, this past week and stuff with Marvel 2 because you know what? Marvel versus Capcom 2, that's one of my favorite fighting games of all time. And let me tell you something, man, it was actually pretty damn fun trying to play online. I mean, the matchmaking stuff, it took a little bit of time because of it was strangely like you couldn't get matched up into games really quick. I mean, since the last time I played any type of like matches online or something, they have released a update actually it was like a couple days ago, I think, and that kind of fixed some bits of like connecting people to matchmaking stuff, as well as patching certain like glitches or like for certain characters, or even like making sure that certain aspects of the original game remained intact with some other types of like glitches that actually made certain like lower tier characters more like say competitive in that kind of space, like that kind of space, you know. But my overall focus upon the Marvel Fighting Collection this week was to pretty much like do a who's who of like, okay, let's see if I can play through different like the arcade mode of all these different games with different characters. So I just started to complete them one after the other, like I did similarly with the Capcom Fighting Collection. So I went with X-Men: Children of the Atom first. That game definitely had the harder like difficulty in terms of playing through its arcade. But at the same time, it had some of the more fun like characters to experiment with, like say with Wolverine or with Storm or with Psylocke, or even like say with Omega Red and like Juggernaut. Of course, Magneto. I mean, Magneto is one of the best characters in the game for good reason. But I think one of the more hilarious things throughout my playthroughs and stuff is how Akuma is like somehow like simultaneous like inserted inside of these older games, because you know how Capcom, you know, was pretty much prevalent in like creating X-Men Chill of the Atom and then X-Men versus Street Fighter and like this and that. And then all of a sudden it gets to Marvel superheroes versus Street Fighter and stuff, and like one of the final bosses of that game is actually kind of like a mecha Akuma, and it's really hilarious because it's like, Akuma, like by himself, is strong enough to where it's like he can easily do a lot of his inputs. He has a lot of abusable certain combos and stuff, especially when you play him like in say a Street Fighter 2, and like you're able to like do like an up, like say a fireball or whatsoever and stuff, and like you can uppercut someone or something like that after you do certain shit like that. It's just trying to figure out what you can do with Akuma and stuff that kind of breaks the game. And there's been like a meme and sort of an argument with Akumas. Every time Akuma's introduced in the game, it ends up getting broken in some way. And the Capcom has to do like historically do fixes. I mean, case in point, I mean, with Street Fighter 6, where they released Akuma, they had to do some patches and updates with the characters as well. But yeah, man, Children of the Atom, that was really fucking fun. Like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, that was also pretty good. I mean, a lot of these core like Capcom games from like Children of the Atom, like Marvel superheroes, like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and like Marvel superheroes versus Street Fighter. I mean, the naming concepts and stuff are kind of mostly kind of like this, mostly kind of the same, bar like a couple of key differences. Like Children of the Atom mostly focused on X-Men stuff, and obviously like Marvel superheroes mostly focused upon like a barrage of different characters from the Marvel like universe. But you are playing a lot with the same characters throughout all of these stint of games, even going past into like MVC 1 and 2. But yet, playing specific versions of these characters and like those particular type of fighting games, you'll be playing as one character and he feels like completely he's overpowered or something like that, and then all of a sudden you play like another game like farther on, and it's like, okay, they really did take away his certain abusability and why he was fun to play with in the first place. But to put in the grand scheme of things, I played through the arcade mode with every single character through all of those games with Children of the Atom first, and then it was X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes versus X-Men, and then MVC 1 and MVC 2 I saved for last for a reason, and that's because I wanted to enjoy those other games first. Those four fighting games first that I never really had a chance to play back in the day or even experiment with them in an arcade. I wanted to fully like immerse myself inside of it and see if I really liked it. And quite honestly, I really liked some of the core gameplay of these games because there was just some fun ass combos I was just coming into and just having a lot of fun with, like how really overpowered and how awesome it felt like to play as Wolverine while you try to like go over the various games, because he has the speed and also the quickness, and he has so like easy pickup like combos you can actually do. But if you play as him, like say in MVC 2, it's like it's completely different, and he's a little bit less in terms of like usability, in terms of like a top tier character. He's more or less sort of like a mid to like sort of like a mid, like say like an assist sort of character in some aspects. But if you really wanted to make a team around him or something in FBC 2, I mean, you can. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed those core sets. And then when I finally started getting to the nitty gritty and stuff of MVC 1 and 2, playing through all the initial characters and stuff, I started really loving like MVC 1 and like more so than I thought I would, because I got to not only play those same X-Men, those same like Street Fighter characters, but I had the chance to experiment more with say Gambit in MVC 1, and like coming forth and like seeing how some of his combos worked, and then like pair him off with say with Chun Li, or with like say Black, not maybe not Blackheart, but yeah, just really giving it time to just experiment with a lot of different combos and a lot of different ways and stuff. And so even trying some of these like pair of like characters together, like say there's a Red Incredible Hulk and stuff who has a lot of use like abusability, and like some of the hidden characters in that MVC 1 are pretty fun too. Like there's a faster version of Venom that's like he's like basically colored like Carnage, but when you play as him, he moves super quick and his combos are super quick to execute too, and it makes him so overpowered you can actually literally overwhelm the entirety of like that arcade run with him. And every time you beat a character, like say if it's a hidden character, the, the end message says, "Oh, okay, congratulations, you beat the game with a secret character." Whereas if you did a more of a traditional, like every single character has their own set ending, barring obviously a few. And then there was kind of a weird sort of thing that happened to where I beat some of the games with some of the special characters, and all of a sudden you see like the dialogue of another character for that end or something like that just pop up just randomly, or like certain similar. I think that kind of happened with when I was playing like Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter and stuff, and I was playing as Blackheart in one run, and then I played as his father Mephisto in another, to where it was basically sort of like the same character, only different speeds and different power of like attacks, but yet I still got the same sort of ending to the end of that arcade mode. But the biggest task that I had to do, and which ultimately actually led me to get the platinum for Marvel Fighting Collection, was I played through Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with every single character. There's 56 characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. You do teams of 3, meaning I had to play through that initial campaign, that the initial arcade, like around 18 some odd times, 18 and a half some odd
18.
times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even with the last one, I had to use another character and stuff like that that I already played through the arcade mode with before in order to finish up the last two. Like I put for that initial set, it's like I had Iron Man, a character that I'd used in a similar team with like Spiral and Thanos, and instead like I paired him off with Jin from Cyberbots and Sanson, like the a daughter to a character that was from an obscure Capcom arcade game way back when, and I went through and just beat the entirety of the arcade mode, which is Iron Man, with the other two being assists. And that was some of the core things I ended up doing with those run throughs. Like I paired off some of the worst characters with like literally some of the more top tier characters as a front, so that way I can go through the entirety of that simple arcade run. So I didn't have to have a lot of difficulties when I faced off against the final boss of that arcade mode, Abyss, who has like three different forms. One's sort of like a armored sort of juggernaut sort of character, and then the second form's more of like a liquid boss sort of enemy that shoots like a fire, like a flamethrower or stuff, and all of a sudden has another attack with these big giant green bubbles that trap you and immobilize you. And then for its final form, it's more like a giant like lava creature or something with a big old ball in the center, like on the top portion that you have to hit and basically whittle down his thing. And you can easily go through and beat him if you have like a character that has a lot of heavy projectiles, say with Iron Man's special where he has that huge freaking gun laser beam, or Cable that has a similar thing, or even with Ryu where you can just jump up in the air and just press the special or perform his super Hadouken or something like that, and he just shoots across and stuff, or even with another example with Cyclops with his own projectile stuff. There's multiple different ways you can beat the arcade mode, and there's also multiple different ways you can use certain character combinations to make things more palatable for those runs. But yeah, that was the most fun I did have with MVC2, because that's something I've never done with that game before. I've always stuck with like a core group of like 6 to 9 characters that I loved playing as. And even when I did go through online, I played with the exact same team I used to play with back in the day, with Venom, with Cable, and with the Incredible Hulk. All three of those characters I have a little bit more experience with than some of the average, like some of like say the average players or some of the newer players coming in. And what's hilarious about it, I want to say I played about 7 or 8, and I actually did manage to win like about 4 or 5 different matches with
Nice.
that team. I actually won, and this is hilarious to me. The first 3 matches I had, I actually won all 3 against the same person. And they weren't any slouches either. They were playing at a good level. It's just that I knew a little bit more about my characters I was using than this other player, and I was managed to, okay, if they're going to go with this kind of routine of an attack, I'm going to use a light attack at just the right time, and I'm going to knock them out. Oh my gosh. So, my overall thoughts of the MVC collection here. Absolutely loved it. from beginning to end. It's everything I wished I wanted it to be for a giant collection of that type. Most of the games, even the Punisher arcade game, I found a way to play as Nick Fury. And you want to know how I did? Through accident, because I went into editing the options and I ended up finding out you can actually switch from player one to player two
Oh,
before you even start up the game. And I can just play and I can play as Nick Fury, and I can actually have the option of pausing the things and starting on the very last stage. And that's how you go through and you can beat the game as a second character.
oh,
If you beat all the way through with the Punisher and stuff on your first playthrough, yeah, that's perfectly fine. But if you switch it up into where you can just play as player two and then all of a sudden be on the last stage, it still credits you for that trophy and completing it
hmm,
with that character. So that's super easy to go forth and do. You don't even have to have it on a 1-star difficulty. They took away that requirement from like Capcom Fighting Collection. So even if you're not familiarized with fighting games or you just love the Marvel stuff or you love some of the Capcom characters and want to experience this, you can easily just put it on level like no stars at all and you can just have yourself a fun time in doing that. Of course, with me, I beat like every single one of those fighting games at least with 1 star because I at least wanted to have that sort of difficulty and stuff without turning it into super easy mode. It was not until I wanted to collect and grind for that platinum trophy for that game collection that I initially set it to 0 stars. But yeah, excellent game. I highly recommend it if you're a fan of fighting games. It doesn't matter whether you buy it on the PS4 or on Steam or even on Nintendo Switch and stuff, you will get yourself a quality fighting game experience. So if you've ever wanted to see what the big old like the hub was about in terms of MVC2, this is the most perfect time you can get into this.
nice. Well, very cool, Gills. Glad you finally got that one. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's gonna wrap it up for you guys, for us this week. So if you like this show, like what we do, like I said, top show, we don't ask for any money, we don't ask for anything, just a little bit every time, and maybe a few clicks along the way. Like, follow, subscribe, check us out on everything: Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever podcasts are on. We're on them. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, YouTube as well. YouTube's a big thing we've been pushing. We've hit every requirement to make some actual revenue off of YouTube,
Yeah.
except for subscribers. We're at 450 right now, so if you want to, take one subscriber at a time, that's all it takes. So you want to hit the little subscription button, maybe ring the bell if you want to. I don't care. If you just want to hit the subscribe and just not even pay attention to us, that's fine too, I guess. Just help us get there. We really would appreciate it if you did that for us. But I was Tyler.
And I have been Colonel Gables. Until next time, everyone, thank you for listening to another fun filled episode of the Drunk Nerds podcast. And among all else, fuck John Fisher.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not even gonna ask you too sweet. Yeah, fuck them. Bye, guys.
See ya.